All right, I'm going to talk to you tonight about two things that are usually not correlated, and those two things are cars and geology. Cars and geology. Yes, yes. So at approximately 5:30 in the morning, about 7 years ago this month, some of you may have heard about 8 Corvettes sinking into a sinkhole in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So in this talk tonight, we're going to talk about why that happened, the science behind it, and a few other things. And one thing that I would like for you to get out of this is that science is interesting. It's fun, but it can also be dangerous. But you can learn about geology, and I'm here to help you do that. And the reason I decided to give this talk is because I did a master's degree in geology quite a few years ago, and I've written a couple of papers and done some studies on that topic over the years. So we are going to talk about the what, how, why, where, and when of geology, karst geology, and the Corvette sinking into a sinkhole in western Kentucky. So what is karst? My definition of karst is the dissolution of limestone, simply the dissolution of limestone. It's a rock type that ends up, the end result is karst and sinkholes in caves. So let me start out with just a personal anecdote here. I grew up in an area that didn't have any karst. I didn't know anything about karst, didn't know a whole lot about geology, but I lived in a beautiful landscape, mountains, lakes, rivers, and all that stuff, but we didn't have any karst. We didn't have any sinkholes, we didn't have any caves, anything like that. So when I moved away to college, it was a different type of geographic landscape. One that was flat and one that had sinkhole plains. And I took my first geology class and we took a field trip to Mammoth Cave, the biggest, longest cave in the world. And I became, I guess, somewhat fascinated with caves. I'd never been to it. I'd obviously heard of Mammoth Cave, but I'd never been to any cave. And going to Mammoth Cave just to see how huge it was pretty amazing to me. So I decided to change my major and go into this subject. So a little bit about the geology. First of all, you have to have the right type of rock. It's limestone. About 25% of the United States landscape is underlain by limestone, according to the United States Geological Survey. You also have to have time. So if you have a rock that has fractures in it, water can run down through those fractures and it can dissolve the calcite, it's a mineral, the calcite out of those rock types. And if you give me long enough, you can take a little small conduit like this, and it can grow over time to something as big as a cave if you take hundreds of thousands or millions of years. And the important point here is that it can become structurally unstable. Think about Swiss cheese, for example. You start out with a solid block, and over time, think about, on the rock side of things, that rock becomes structurally unstable because water runs through it and dissolves those little bits and pieces of calcite away. So if you build a museum over top of it, a Corvette museum, you might imagine that that could sink if it becomes structurally unstable and erodes away enough. So the end result of all the things under the karst umbrella, the two primary ones are sinkholes and caves. There are other karst features that we won't go into here tonight, but ultimately, I want you to know that this is why the Corvette Museum collapsed. And you can find some really interesting YouTube videos. I looked up some earlier. It had over 9 million viewers of this security cam footage that showed the Corvette sinking into the sinkhole. So it was built over top of a cave, structurally unstable, and it collapsed over time. So in conclusion, in this talk, we have talked about the what, why, how, when, and where of karst geology and the Corvette Museum sinking. And we've defined karst. Karst is the dissolution of limestone leading to caves and sinkholes and other karst features. And I also want you to get out of this that science is fun, it's cool, but it can also be dangerous. There are things that we need to pay attention to. So, if 25% of the landscape is underlain by limestone, chances are somebody in this class lives in an area that's underlain by limestone. So I'm happy to, if you reach out to me, I'm happy to help you point you in the right direction as far as resources are concerned. So thank you very much for coming to my talk. I appreciate your time and attention.